What is up? We are back. Mock It Like It's Hot. Club Fantasy's weekly mock draft show is ready to start the season after a very long offseason. The NFL draft is fewer than 3 weeks away, which means it's time to start figuring out how we want to play with these rookies in Dynasty. Sure, we don't have landing spots yet. We're not going to let that bother us. We are going to look at a 5-round draft today, Superflex variation, and we have the great Kevin Coleman, my good friend, who is my Dynasty expert. When I have Dynasty questions, I go to Kevin. Now you guys get to use him too. Let's get into the mock draft. What is up? Welcome to Mock It Like It's Hot, Club Fantasy's weekly mock draft show. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. This is our first show of the 2025 season. We took a long off season. We had a couple of way too early drafts, but we are back for our weekly episodes now. My co-host is Austin Amandolia. Austin, it has been a while. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the longest that I've gone with not talking to you in probably like 3 years at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I kept us out like an extra 2 or 3 weeks this time. So.
Yeah, but no, it's good. It's fun because I'm in the middle of baseball season, managing our daily league that we're in, which is a load of fun and very time consuming, and tracking way too many games and bets and whatnot going on. And then in the midst of that, I get to check out some rookies.
Yeah. Austin actually got me into fantasy baseball this year. So I am in a league with Austin, making a complete fool of myself, as I often do when talking fantasy football with my friend, Kevin Coleman. Kevin, welcome to Mock It Like It's Hot, though. We've had you on this show, I think, every season since I've started it running. So,
yeah, I didn't know if I was going to get the invite this time, but yeah, we did. You guys saved me because my mother-in-law's in town. So I appreciate you guys. She just got here a couple hours ago, and I was like, hey, babe, sorry, I got to go do this. I don't know what to tell you. I'll be out in an hour. So.
Prior obligations.
Mother-in-law does not hit that list. So, so thank you for the invite tonight. And we're going to chat it up a little bit.
He said he wasn't sure if he was going to get the invite. He gets the very first invite. When I was thinking of Josh really encouraged me to start this season off with a rookie mock because we have our Stars of Tomorrow threads going on right now, all of the hot rookie stuff going on, and we have our show Stars of Tomorrow every single Wednesday. So why not start with a rookie show? When I think rookies, I think Kevin Coleman, because I've been getting all my information from you for years now. So let's go ahead and get this draft up on the screen, guys. So let me make sure I remember what buttons I need to hit here. Oh, I'm so good at this. I like to break it down for everybody before we get the draft started. This is going to be a 10-team draft. I made it 5 rounds. Essentially, the thought process here is let's get 50 rookies up on the board. If you've never tuned into Mock It Like It's Hot before, we are not going to talk about every team, especially not in a rookie draft, because you're kind of just taking the best available player because you don't really have a roster build. But I'm going to ask Kevin a whole bunch of strategy questions and player questions, and Austin's going to throw in his 2 cents, and we're going to see if we can make sense of these rookies before we even know where they land. And then in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, we're going to do this draft all over again with landing spots and see how bad everything has changed. I like to get started by mentioning who our drafters are. So Kevin took the 1 spot by his own words because he's a coward. So we got Kevin at 1, friend of the show, Chris Molina picking at 2, Saywat again at 3. Austin took the 4 spot, Astro Dabber at 5, Duarte at 6, Shia LaBeouf at 7, Brocal at 8, Dominic M.A. at 9, and Thompson at 10. Those are going to be the 10 drafters. We're going to talk about 50 rookies. I'm going to go ahead and get this draft started. Kevin, talk to everybody where they can find your work. Like I said, you are one of my favorite people when it comes to Dynasty, and more importantly, Devy. You're kind of one of the forefront of the Devy League stuff there. So tell people about what you're working on and what kind of stuff you do.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you plugging that. You can find us at the Devy Royale. We've been going for a while, but it was kind of like back burner. Like we never really got our full teeth into it. And we started getting our teeth into it around May last year, like June-ish. And so really you can find a lot of our content now on our Substack. It's something that we've been growing a lot. So I wrote written content, rankings, all of the above over there. It's a Devy Royale Substack. We do have some YouTube videos out there. We're kind of putting out a couple a week, and we have our podcast. So that's really me and Jay Stein do our podcast. We do Devy, Dynasty, all of the above over there. And really in our Patreon, that's where we have a lot of our Devy stuff. Devy's kind of a very niche thing. There's not that many people doing it anymore. I feel old now because I'm like, damn, there used to be when I first started, there's like a lot of people out here now.
Yeah.
It's very very rare to find that. So it makes me feel old. But if you do Devy and you do, Dynasty and those type of things, you should, and CFF, we do a little bit of the C2C stuff too. So if you come over there, you can find all that stuff over on our Substack.
Perfect. You love to hear it. Austin reminded me in the private chat that I should also be trying to pay some of Club Fantasy's bills. So I have a couple of things that I need to talk about. First and foremost, since we are talking Dynasty, we still have our partnership going on with Dynasty Nerds. If you use promo code Club Fantasy, you can get 15% off of any of the memberships they have going on over there. They have a ton of great Dynasty tools. I can't recommend them highly enough. We have the scroll going down at the bottom. So if you guys are looking to get involved with Dynasty Nerds, or as I always mention, if you just want to help the show out and benefit yourself, this gets us a little bit of money if you guys sign up. So use promo code Club Fantasy for 15% off. We also have a Discord now, and we use that Discord a lot to help people get into these mock drafts, and you can link up with other like-minded people. I see my internet is already being buggy, so hopefully you guys can still hear me and everything's going okay. But for the most part, if you guys are interested in getting into the Discord, make sure you guys DM us on at Club Fantasy FFL over on Twitter. We'll get you guys in there. It's first invite for these drafts goes out on Discord, but we also do a lot of other cool stuff. So make sure you guys are looking out for that. And I think that's everything I need to do, Austin, as we now start to look at the draft. But I do want to throw our buddy Vince up on the screen. Vince says, "Good day, everybody." And Vince says, "I'm the worst at timing our shows because now I'm competing with the Rays and the Pacers." Don't watch baseball. Don't watch basketball. So none of this matters, Vince. You are here to talk rookies with the great Kevin Coleman. So none of that actually matters. And Kevin, he calls you out specifically that he's reached out for you a process of content making and managing the space. And Kevin, that's something you've always been great with. In fact, let's start with that, Kevin, because I feel like I've been following you on Twitter for as long as I've been on Twitter at this point. And one of the things I've really seen you make an effort to do is help other people always grow in this industry. You constantly are putting out tweets that just tell people, how you kind of grew from point A to point B and giving them advice. And why did you feel like that's something important to do as a content maker to also try to help other people get better?
Well, it started with you always start in the space and you try to help people and you think everybody's for you. But as you find out, there's very limited jobs in this space. And so what you end up seeing out there a lot of times is, yeah, they like you until you could possibly get a job that they like. And then you see that kind of going away. So really, I never had that going in. I never really had anybody that took me under their wing and said, hey, this is kind of how you do things. You're basically shooting from the hip. And I think that's why you see a lot of people quit, because they just don't know what to do. There's so many avenues, there's so many ways, and you know it better than I do, Ryan. The best way to get a job in the space is go to the expo and buy someone a beer. Yep. And that guy is probably an owner of a company, and you're cool, and then you get a job, right? It's not always on the merits. It can be. It'll lead to that. Over time, you'll find it. So it's really just about that. And I've been through it all. I've worked at 2 giant companies, Fantasy Pros and Football Guys. And now I'm doing my own thing, and it's funny how you always want to go to the mountaintop and you're like, yeah, I want my name on that. And it's so funny. I'm having more fun and I'm less stressed, and I'm just and making more money doing it myself now, which is crazy when you think about it. So I always am open to people. They always message me, hey, how would you do this? And it just depends on what you want. So I help all kinds of people. I get DMs all the time. I want to start in this space. What should I do? And I just send them hey, this is how I did it. This is how I would do it. And I still get guys one of my good friends, Caleb Niemi. He was on his own for a long time. I think he just got hired by DLF to run their YouTube channel, I think. Awesome. And it was awesome seeing that. He's like, hey, dude, I just want to let you know I'm having a baby. Oh, and I finally got that job. And that's the cool things, right? Because I'm not doing this. I'm doing this for fun. I'm like we talked about, this isn't a full-time job for me. So then if I can help out other people, I love seeing comments. So to wrap it back to rookies real quick, I had someone DM me the other day. He's like, dude, you loved Matthew Golden 3 years ago. I have him everywhere in Devy because of you. And I did. I loved Matthew Golden 3 years ago. And he's like, thank you. And I'm like, well, I'm glad it worked out because it was not looking good for a couple of years there. And so we were laughing about it, but that's the part of it that's fun, is coming back to this stuff, doing the Devy stuff, and then they having them on their rosters and stuff like that.
I wasn't sure where that story was going. I thought we were going to do you hate Matthew Golden now?
No.
Have you turned on Matthew Golden?
No, I have not. Maybe not the value. I don't love the value, right? I like getting him as a sleeper. But yeah, that's, when you're looking at it, it's just fun doing that. So I'm always, if you're watching and you're like, hey, and I'm not perfect. I've made tons of mistakes. I'll tell you the mistakes I've made. And like I can help you that way. Like, and again, I think it just comes down to learning the space a little bit. Biggest piece of advice, and I know we gotta get into this, but the biggest thing I would say is if you want to like really make money and really kind of dive into content, the less you are involved in the community, it's gonna sound bad. Ryan's gonna yell at me, but the less you're involved in the community, sometimes the better. Because I think you get wrapped up in community stuff and it's great and it's all there, but that kind of becomes your focus. And I think where your focus should be is the content that you're making and what you're building. And don't make it for those people. Like, don't put out your rookie draft hoping that I retweet it because I liked it. I'll retweet it because I like you, but you don't want me to read your stuff. You want the 10 other people that aren't on social media doing it. That's where it's really at.
I am not going to get mad at you for that wonderful advice. That is something I talk about all the time, is making content for the 99%, not for the 1%. And Twitter specifically, because we all came up during the same time, is such an echo chamber where we're all talking to each other and we forget that those aren't the people who, if you're selling anything, those ain't the people buying that shit.
They're cheap. We're cheap. We ain't buying that stuff.
We all want free memberships. What are you talking about?
I talked about your site. Give me a sub. Come on. Let me have that.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about this. And I normally don't have you guys talk about your picks, but I figure with these rookie drafts, let's just kind of take it round by round. And I want to break down round one, and it's going to kind of lead me into a question. So I'm just going to give you guys round one right now. It's Ashton Jeanty off the board, then Cam Ward. This is Superflex. And Austin, actually, let's take a second right now. I haven't given you a chance to talk. Can you kind of explain for anybody who might be very, very new to fantasy dynasty Superflex, the difference between Superflex and what they're probably used to, one quarterback leagues, Austin?
Yeah, if you started in a standard format of fantasy football, you likely started in a league that has one quarterback position. Most standard leagues have 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a flex spot, a tight end, and a defense. But people in the fantasy community wanted something new. They got tired of only having one quarterback, particularly in those smaller leagues where you only have maybe 8 to 10 teams and all of the starting quarterbacks are really great. And so to add more variety, add more strategy to the team building scenarios, people introduced Superflex, which gives you the ability to put a second quarterback in your lineup. You can also put a tight end, receiver, or running back in that Superflex position, but most often you're looking to put a quarterback in that position. And so anytime you have a Superflex draft, quarterbacks are way more expensive. They get way earlier in the draft, whether it's a rookie draft, a dynasty startup, or even a redraft Superflex league. And so you do have to account for that. You're going to get way less value on your quarterbacks when you're playing in that Superflex format.
Love it. And that kind of leads me to what the question I'm going to ask Kevin once we get started here. But Ashton Jeanty, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Travion Henderson, Tet McMillan, Omarion Hampton, Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka, Shadur Sanders, and Quinshon Judkins round out the first round. And Kevin, the first question I wanted to have for you is something that I've been doing this show for 4 years now. And one of the things we're always told in Superflex is prioritize the quarterbacks, prioritize the quarterbacks, prioritize the quarterbacks. But for 4 years, there has always been a position player that ends up going above these quarterbacks. And then when you look at this draft specifically, Cam Ward is the second pick. Shadur Sanders falls all the way to 9. I want to have you get started, Kevin, with Ashton Jeanty in a Superflex format. Obviously, he's the club favorite coming out of this draft. Is he that much better than these quarterbacks that even a QB needy team maybe shouldn't consider him? It should be Jeanty at the 101.
No, I think if you're QB needy, you take the quarterback.
Okay.
You take Cam Ward. I mean, if he goes number 2, or excuse me, number 1 overall, I mean, you're kind of dumb not to take him. Like, if you need a quarterback, and if your team from a perspective of value is like sitting there as like a middling team or rebuilding team, like everybody will tell you to trade back, but someone's got to trade up for it. So like there is like, oh, trade back. Okay, well, that's great. But in this league I have, these cheap league mates here are not moving up. So like, what am I supposed to do there? So if you can trade back a spot and maybe get an extra pick, fine. But if you're sitting there and you're looking at it just from a value perspective, you take Cam Ward. Like I argue this, and it, you know, remember the Malik Willis year? So remember everybody's talking about Malik Willis, 101 and all that stuff. And then Breece Hall was sitting there. And I remember I went on this, and I still get the guys that were arguing about Breece Hall or Malik Willis. My argument was, if Malik was going to go 101 in the NFL draft, you still take Malik Willis at 101 just from a value perspective. Like, you might not think he's great, but you just move him and trade him, and you have those depending on what your build is. If you take Jeanty here, that's fine. Like, mean, Bijan went 101 into some drafts. Like that was a weird year.
Drafts.
Most drafts, kind of depending on what the league was. But I would argue that maybe has Bijan returned what a 101 usually does? Maybe. Maybe like there's a big maybe there. Will Jeanty do that? I'm seeing a lot of talk about, trade back or, get an extra pick, then draft Amari and Hampton later. Like we see that all the time. That might be the right move, right? But if you're just looking at it from like locked in, probably top 12 capital, Jeanty's an amazing pick because he still holds value. Bijan held his value. Gibbs held his value where you drafted him. So there is that mark there. And I think Ward or Jeanty are going to hold their value. I think after that, there's huge question marks.
Yeah. And Austin, that's kind of what we've been looking at is, it was the Bijan Robinson. Last year, I feel like the quarterbacks kind of got their due. But Austin, one of the things I've noticed with Jeanty and these running backs in general is we're coming off of a year where everybody hated the running backs and now everybody really likes the running backs. Is this an overcorrection or are these running backs, in your opinion, just that good, Austin?
Well, I will say that the draft experts are definitely big on this being a super deep class of running backs. And so this is the year for NFL teams to get their running backs, which typically has a trickle down effect for how we will play, how that'll play out in our dynasty drafts. I definitely think I like having Ashton Jeanty. It really stands out in this year's draft, particularly compared to last year's class. And so it makes sense that he is going 101. Overall, I haven't been like terribly blown away in my current review of the running back class. I think it is definitely the position to target if you're running back needy. Like it's worth having multiple bites at the apple on that, going after 3 or 4 running backs in your rookie drafts so that you have that kind of depth to access and you have more dart throws to be able for one of those players to hit. But honestly, for me overall, like this class is not particularly interesting for me. I'm like very interested in trading away draft
picks. What a hater!
Able to
hater, Austin.
Which is why we're gonna have Kevin try and convince me on some of these players because so far I've been like I don't know, I don't see the vision.
Yeah. Well, let's keep with the Superflex theme because we talked about Jeanty being ahead, Kevin. I want to come back to these quarterbacks because in this draft specifically, we saw one go at 2. We saw the next one not go at 9 till 9. We saw the next one go 14 picks into the draft. And then we're going another, 18 and 19 before the rest of them start going. In your evaluation, Kevin, is Cam Ward that much better than Shedeur Sanders, heads and tails? And then are Ward and Sanders that much better than the field? Is that kind of how you break these quarterbacks down, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Cam and Shedeur are closer to me. They're closer in my stuff. So like I'm getting crap in the Discord like all day. You would not believe that because I'm not as down in Shedeur as like everybody else is because the one thing Shedeur does very well is just his ball placement, man. Like when you watch, if you go through it and you kind of talk about it, like we're doing a rookie guide coming up here. We're kind of doing through the tape and we have all 22. Shedeur's ball placement is amazing, right? Amazing. Like, and if his name wasn't Sanders, I don't think like people say if his name wasn't Sanders, he'd been first round. I think that's crap. I think if his name wasn't Sanders, we wouldn't be seeing all like kind of the vitriol, the hate, the kind of like, and he deserves some of it. Like, let's be real. He was a cocky SOB the last 2 years. So like, I get why he's getting that. But when you go through like all the, the ball placement processing and all that, I love him at 109. Like I'll take a shot on that at 109 because I think he's going to hold his value. Right. And we've seen quarterbacks. Look at how bad these quarterbacks that we've seen playing the last couple of years. Tommy DeVito, like we're seeing some of these guys playing there. You cannot tell me Shedeur is not going to get multiple chances to start and teams and everything there. And if he goes later, he's going to go to a better team, which I'm okay with. Go to the Steelers, go to a team because we know quarterbacks are made by the teams they're drafted by. Darnold, bad team. Look what happened, right? And then he kind of bounces back. So we see that. So from just like a talent perspective, I think Shedeur and Cam are very close. And I think the thing with Cam, I love Cam. Like I talked about Cam coming from when he came from FCS to Washington State, to Miami. The biggest thing that I swear scares me about Cam Ward the most, his decision-making is atrocious. I've talked about it for 2 years. The guy just makes poor throws at bad times, and the one thing you can't do in the NFL is throw interceptions because coaches are going to hate that. Shedeur doesn't do that. Shedeur has really done a very good job. Now, he threw a ton last year. He had 477 attempts, so he did have a little bit more last year. But I think that processing is going to be better as you go through the coaching ways. And then, I mean, you see Monroe and Howard and Dart there. Those are okay value. Like, that's fine. Depending on spots, right? That's really what you're looking at there. And Monroe is the rushing upside. I mean, the dude is is a 4.3-ish kind of prospect.
Yeah.
So you love that about him. But if I can get Shedeur at 109, I'd probably much rather take Shedeur at 109 and Ward at 102, right? Like that's just kind of my value play.
I've been lucky enough to be rather successful in Dynasty in the years I've been playing, so I tend to pick towards the end of rounds, and I'm always grabbing quarterbacks. And like if this draft specifically fell to me, Austin, where I'm able to get Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, maybe not Will Howard, I'm a little lower on Howard than everybody else, but Sanders, Jackson Dart, even Dylan Gabriel a few rounds later, towards the end of a round, I'm going to jump on that. But Austin, I'm going to come back to your first round pick. You kind of just mentioned you're not as excited about the running backs as maybe everybody else is, but you take a running back over a quarterback in Superflex. Is this you also not being excited about Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe?
Well, I think part of this too, honestly, is me being excited about TreVeyon Henderson.
I was going to say, I thought it might be the player, not the position, really. So
I've been waiting many years for this man to make it to the NFL. I really enjoy Henderson, and I do feel like the top 4 is a little bit too expensive for me for a quarterback not named Cam Ward in this draft. I personally would be waiting until we get out, like maybe pick 5. I'd be interested in Shedeur Sanders, but I start feeling more comfortable with that at pick 6 for me, because I think Cam Ward is more guaranteed to have playing time early on. I think just like the way that the draft is projected to go currently, he's expected to be the number 1 pick. He's probably going to be starting day 1. Shedeur Sanders, there's a huge range of where he could go. He could be the 2nd pick. He could be the 2nd pick of the 2nd round. I truly think that range is very viable, and it wouldn't shock me either way. And so for me, like particularly right now, I want to know his landing spot and his situation. While the ball placement is right on and Kevin is on point with that, I do worry about his pocket presence and how that will translate to the NFL. I think he had a really rough offensive line to work with in Colorado, but there were times where he created sacks himself, and that might translate to the NFL. Now he might develop out of that, but it definitely has me more cautious to take him with a premium pick than I say a TreVeyon Henderson, who I've seen play kind of that 3-down back role. Now Henderson's dealt with injuries over time, so he has his own kind of issues as well. He's not a perfect player, but really none of these guys are. So I took Henderson because I like the upside there more. And I also wanted to see where the value played out on other guys that I'm interested in, particularly at that running back position.
And there's always that part of mock drafting as well. Sometimes you don't take the guy you really want because you want to see where they're actually going to fall. That's going to come into a lot more play after we have landing spots. It's not something we so much need to worry about now. So Austin took his guy, but obviously you want to see where other people go. We spent a lot of time on running backs and quarterbacks makes a lot of sense in Dynasty. Running backs, maybe not so much. But Kevin, I want to talk a little bit about Tet McMillan, because I feel like we're seeing a pretty common phenomenon, and maybe I'm wrong because this is the 10,000 foot view, but we're seeing the thing where people kind of got bored with him being the number 1 wide receiver. And so like, I'm not necessarily hearing a ton of negative, but I'm not hearing a lot of positive about Tet McMillan. And then in this draft, he falls to the 5 as the 2nd wide receiver off the board behind Travis Hunter. I was going to ask you about Travis Hunter in general, because my concern is I don't even know if this guy's an offensive player yet. Seems like he's 50-50 at best, and I don't know what kind of draft capital I want to put into a 50-50 player. But I want to talk specifically about Tet McMillan, because is it a case, Kevin, where people are just getting bored with him being the wide receiver 1 and we're finding reasons to knock this guy? Or are there legitimate problems with Tet McMillan's game?
So I think it's both. So I think that yes, we've been hearing like a lot of the talk and all of that, like in terms of, what he is or isn't. But I mean, the one thing from a production standpoint, the kid's had over 1,300 yards 2 straight years. Like that's legitimate. Like when you're looking at just from that, the 18 touchdowns the last 2 years and all of that. I think that from a weakness standpoint, like if you're going to knock Tet for anything, I think they're going to point to speed, right? You see that a lot. They're talking about the long speed and all of that. His releases is okay. It's not great. He's got to get better at it. And I think that's the one worry about from an NFL perspective. Like, hey, what does that release look like? And I think the number one thing for the most part, when you're watching him play, he's fine at creating yards after the catch, but he's not great at it. So I think that's where you look at him and you say, okay, is Teddy wide receiver 1? And I think I don't know if there is any wide receiver ones from a fantasy perspective. Like, is there a wide receiver one in this class where you're like, hey, that guy could be a top 12 guy? Because when you think of the wide receiver position, it gets churned so much, right? And like, you're thinking all the young guys coming in too.
Yeah.
Like, now one of them undoubtedly probably will break out. We'll see that. But I think that's the question mark. So like, that's where you come into like these running backs like Henderson, right? I think that's a fine pick there. Like, okay, well, if I value the running back like a Hampton or Henderson over him, undoubtedly, because you guys know, if you play in Dynasty long enough, if Henderson goes out and has like 2 great games at the beginning of the year, that dude's gonna be a top 3 running back in Dynasty.
Yeah,
it's gonna be stupid.
instantly.
Like, everybody's gonna take the screenshots and keep track of, look at this. Henderson is 3. Like, that's just how the game gets played. Whereas I think McMillan is, from a dynasty value standpoint, he's gonna be kind of stuck in the Drake London era, right? 12 to 16. Well, I value him at 9. And it's like, okay, great. Like, that's kind of how, and then your hope probably would be from a fantasy ceiling is what, Nico Collins? 8, 7 in that range, depending on what that value is. Now, can he maybe be a higher ceiling? Sure. But like, that's where I value him as a wide receiver 2. And then if he gives me more, great. But then that's where you come into that value perspective of like, do I want to take him top 3? And that's why you're starting to see some of these guys kind of get taken in that range. Whereas Hunter, I love the 103 pick. If a team comes out and says, he's my wide receiver 1, Browns take him and say, hey, he's our wide receiver 1. Okay, I'll take him at 10. I'll take him wide receiver 1. That's fine. He's the talented guy. I see him sometimes go to like 110. I'm going to tell you right now, if Travis Hunter is at 110 and a team says that he's going to play at least wide receiver, whatever percentage of the time, you take him. Because he's the best athlete in this class. Like, he is legitimately the best athlete in this class. So, and a team might switch up, right? What happens if there's an injury and they're like, oh, wow, we really do need you at wide receiver. And then just imagine the value you're getting from that guy. So to me, Hunter is the most talented player. That's the guy you take if he keeps dropping there. But if someone says he's wide receiver 1, then yeah, if he was coming out as a wide receiver, he'd be my 1, bar none, number 1.
And Austin, I'm going to throw Josh up on the screen here because it kind of lends into how I was going to frame this question to you. Is he thinks the biggest thing working against Ted McMillan is that teams need a true wide receiver 1, aren't the ones that are willing to draft him. And I kind of, where I wanted to go with this is, do we think, how do I want to put this? I'm just going to be blunt about it. Do we think the failures of Marvin Harrison Jr. as a rookie are kind of already throwing shade at this wide receiver class, Austin? And then you have everybody telling you how great of a running back class it is?
No, I don't think that's what's happening here. I think it's truly a weaker receiver class and a stronger running back class. I started, a little bit peek behind the curtain of my process. I go to my Fantasy Pros rookie rankings. I look at what the consensus is, and I start going through and watching players in order by position so that I'm comparing player like for like, and then I rank them myself and I take notes along the way. So I got through 20 running backs and then I started on the receivers. I started with Ted McMillan, and the first thing I wrote was, I truly do not know how to feel about him. And this was because I came in seeing him ranked number 1 in Fantasy Pros, and I'm like, okay, so this is the guy. And as I was watching him, I was like, he's fine. I think he will be a decent receiver in the league, but he's not that talent that really goes above and beyond that makes me really excited to draft him, like a Marvin Harrison Jr., even like the other receivers that were drafted early in last year's draft. So I think it is a genuinely weaker class. And I think Kevin's point is right on with Travis Hunter. If he was coming out clearly as a wide receiver, he would be my number 1 guy as well, because I know he has the route running ability, he has the speed, he has the athleticism that he needs to be an elite playmaker. It's really a question of usage at this point, but because we don't know that, and McMillan is kind of like a weaker number 1 receiver from a fantasy perspective in this year's class, that's part of what played into me going into running back here, is because I do feel like Henderson is a more sure thing. I have questions about Hampton, but there are other running backs that I feel more comfortable with because I know more about them, and I feel like they're going to be more consistent and translate more quickly than some of the receivers might. Plus, receivers just a deep position in general now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't expect you both to be kind of tepid on Ted McMillan when I set up my keep trade cut question for the show. If you guys have never watched the show before, I like to give a hypothetical keep trade cut. I try to keep it with the theme of the show. And for this show I came up with, I want to talk about kind of some of these underrated wide receivers. So maybe this does work out really well because one of these guys is finally coming into their own. Kevin, I always let you go second. I make Austin go first because I'm putting you guys on the spot here. So keep trade cut Dynasty, Tet McMillan, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba. So, Austin, the last kind of 3 big wide receiver ones coming out, how would you play that out and keep trade cut?
Oh, you're going to have to start getting loose again on these because this one was too easy for me, Ryan. You're not making me squirm on this one. I'm keeping Marvin Harrison Jr. I still believe in the prospect and the talent that he's going to continue to develop over the next couple of years. I'll trade Jackson Smith-Njigba because I think he had a great year last year, but he does not have Geno Smith anymore. And I do think that is going to be meaningful for that Seattle Seahawks offense. And I'll cut Tet McMillan. I definitely think if the 3 of them had been in the same class, Harrison and JSN would have gone before McMillan.
Yeah, I hearing you guys talk, I knew this question was not going to be as fun as I was hoping it was going to be at the beginning of the show. Kevin, do you have any different thoughts than Austin on the keep trade cut of Tet McMillan, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jackson Smith-Njigba?
I'm really trying for you, but that's really kind of how I would do it too.
Hearing you guys talk earlier, I knew it was going to happen this way.
So. That's how I lean. I think because JSN is just an interesting one, right? He's a tough one to kind of crack in terms of that offense and what that's going to look like. Because I think they're going to run the ball more than what we expect the rushing volume be there. And he's at wide receiver 11 right now. I'd probably trade that. And it's funny because I was a JSN truther forever, but now I'm like, I'd probably get rid of that. I think Marvin's the biggest buy. I wrote a whole dynasty spotlight on him like a couple weeks ago. Sitting there where he's sitting at wide receiver 10 to 12 to 13, wherever he's at, I'm buying him. I was able to trade Lad McConkey for him with a couple extra stuff in there. If you can do that, I'm going to go after Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably something I want to do as well because I tried to buy last year and wasn't able to get him in a lot of leagues, and I feel like his price has certainly dipped at this point. So yeah, he's a lot more gettable at this point. I like to play for the crowd, and John McGlynn brings up the 411 ADP for Harold Fannin after what we kind of saw from him in the pre-combine stuff. I want to just talk about these tight ends in general, because if I'm being perfectly honest, and Austin, you're probably in the same boat as me here, this is probably the position group, Kevin, that I know the least about. I have seen Tyler Warren as the 5th overall pick in some mock drafts where people really love this kid. If they think he gets the right draft capital, he's going to shoot up. Loveland, I haven't quite seen this closely tied to Warren, but what I'm shocked by here is exactly what was brought up in the chat. The drop off from Loveland to 2 full rounds, almost 3 full rounds later, of Eric Arroyo, Gunnar Helm, and Harold Fannin, and Fannin being the 5th of this group. What's kind of going on with these tight ends? Have they had decent pro days? Have they not had decent pro days? Where should we expect these guys to go? How much is landing spot going to play into this?
Yeah, I mean, my tight end 3 went tight end 6 in this, and Mason Taylor. I'm a big Mason Taylor guy. I'd rather have him. I think and even Terrence Ferguson is out there. That's a guy that I'd rather probably have than Arroyo. Helm is I don't see it with Helm. Helm struggled. He kind of rolled his ankle, had some problems at the combine, and kind of tested poorly. He tested poorly at the pro day too. Didn't look great in terms of what he was doing because of the injury. But I think really with Fannin, so for John's point about Fannin, he's Isaiah Likely. So the thing with Fannin is his profile, it basically is Isaiah Likely. He produced a hell of a ton at Bowling Green. He had 1,500 yards receiving. That's great. 10 touchdowns there. And he's versatile, right? He can line up in slot, backfield. He can do on the perimeter too. He can do that. Very strong hands, good catch radius, all of that. But he really lacks the size, 6'3", 241 to be a consistent blocker. And I don't trust PFF grades all that much. When you go on the PFF grades, we go to plot his blocking grades and those type of things, they will serve him pretty well. But when you're just looking at it from a film-based perspective, he struggled there. And the thing with Fannin that I don't think people realize, he doesn't have very strong play speed. I think that I think a vertical threat for him is going to be tough, and he doesn't separate well. So there's red flags in that profile. And that was the weirdest thing I saw pre combine is a lot of people had Fannin as their 1, tight end 1. That was a real thing going around. And I was well, he's Isaiah Likely. I like Likely, but if that's going to be kind of his profile going in, because I think just like Likely, they're going to have a 12 personnel tight end in line. That's what they're going to have for them. And that's going to limit his targets, right? So if he's the 2nd tight end on the field, plus wherever he gets drafted, and think of the Ravens from a wide receiver perspective. I mean, I like Zay, Bateman, those guys. He's had opportunities, and Andrews has been there. Maybe because Andrews is there, definitely that was part of it. But if Fannin gets stuck in that spot where he's a 2nd tight end, where they can use him in a slot. That hurts his ceiling. So that's really what you have. Arroyo is the interesting one because he could be athletic and kind of be that guy that's like, hey, athletic, but can play inline too. It's just the injury history with him. That's the question. Like it's just about, hey, his injuries, his lack of play time. Like basically for 3 years he didn't play. And this last year, I just get nervous. I don't know if you guys. I have a buddy I do a podcast with. His name's Jay Stein. I hate analytics, but he's an analytics guy, and I've slowly morphed into understanding them. And he like his big red flag is that 1 year breakout. He absolutely hates it. And we've done it long enough to where I see that 1 year breakout for Arroyo, and I'm like, that makes me nervous to where if I can get a Taylor later, I'd take him.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So your guy is Taylor. Josh's guy is Arroyo. I got to be honest, I'm a Fanon guy myself. Austin, do you have a guy for these tight ends? Or are you just like, you guys are all dumb, get Tyler Warren and be done with it?
I do not have a guy as of yet. I am a little bit like focused on, well, selfishly, let's just be real. In 2 of my dynasty leagues where I have been scraping the bottom of the barrel for the past 2 years, I am running back desperate in both of those leagues. So I am just like, so
you have to study running back out of pure necessity at this point. So
yeah, we'll get to the tight ends because I am known to take a 4th round dart throw on a rookie tight end. I love the tight ends that way. So I'll have a guy, don't worry. But I will say one thing I do want to add to this conversation that I think will matter to me about the tight ends is the landing spot. Because I think one thing we have found is regardless of the athleticism of the specific player, how the coach and the offensive coordinator use that tight end really plays a big role in whether or not they end up actually translating into the NFL. Like we saw Michael Mayer was an incredible prospect in the tight end position when he came out. Las Vegas didn't really use him. And then lo and behold, they get a new coaching staff, new GM. They draft a new tight end. All of a sudden, he's a stud. Sam Laporta is a great example where I think part of the reason he was so successful in his first year was because of the way he was utilized in that offense. They found a way to get him involved early as a pass catcher and then kind of bring him up to speed over time on the pass blocking aspect of things. If there's a tight end that goes and ends up in Arthur Smith's offense, I don't think I'm going to count on them in year 1 to pop off. I think Arthur Smith is going to say, oh yeah, you're going to block for us. And they're going to say, yeah, that's a lot for me to learn as a rookie on a quick turnaround.
Yeah, that's usually what the issue is. So, no, that makes a ton of sense. I want to move on. Let's talk about this deep running back class, Kevin. So I'm going to kind of list off the guys who I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on because they get the most time. So we're talking Jeanty, Henderson, Hampton, Judkins, probably down to Caleb Judkins and Scadbo. Below that, you have a large still class of very popular names. Who are 1 or 2 guys from kind of below that top 5 that you think deserve a little bit more attention than what they're getting? Obviously, you have Martinez and Sanders that you drafted here. Are there any other guys that you feel people should be paying attention to? Vince in the chat is all about RJ Harvey. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll stick with Giddens for right now. DJ Giddens from Kansas State. I think that when you're looking at a great profile, 3-year kid only, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And then you also, when you're looking from a receiving standpoint, he's had over 500 receiving yards the last 2 years. So DJ is one of those like underrated kids from Kansas State that you're like, hey, this kid is actually, he could be a 3-down guy. So like what I kind of look for just from a dynasty aspect, these later rounds, there's a lot of guys in here. Like I think RJ is kind of a tweener. I think Neal can be a 3-down guy. Tootin, he's probably I don't know. I would say he's kind of a receiving guy, 3rd down guy with some possible explosiveness. Martinez is an early down guy. Sanders, early down guy only. Blue, probably more of a scat back. So if I'm later in these rounds, the 3rd, 4th round, what I'm looking for, give me a guy that could do both, right? Because you wanted as much opportunity volume on the field. Yeah. So Giddens to me is that. Like I think he can be a very good receiver. I think he's creative in space. He's elusive enough. We've seen the production, very good footwork, things that really stand out about him. Very good ball security too. So if you're thinking late round guys, who are you going to draft? I mean, he's had 3 career fumbles and 518 carries. That's legitimate. Jaden Blue probably had like 27 fumbles last year. And like, well, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but he was fumbling all over the place, right? So if you're in between guys like that, you're like, hey, I think the one thing that limits Giddens is he's not really explosive. He's okay. He had a relative athletic score of 9.75. So you like that. But I think that, that might not work. And the one thing with Giddens is pass protection. But if he can learn that, this kid is just gonna he'll be fine, right? Like we comped him to Rachaad White, so that was our comp and our guide. And that's fine for me. If DJ Giddens can turn into that in the 3rd round, I think he's a guy that people need to like just be aware. He's not getting a ton of love out there, but if he gets a capital, I could see him getting day 2 late, right? If he gets day 2 late and gets a fun spot, he's a perfect guy to be a running back 2 on a depth chart. And then all of a sudden, holy crap, now DJ Giddens starting because there's an injury ahead of him, right? Like that's what I'm looking for. When you draft these guys late, once they get drafted somewhere, okay, who's got opportunity? Like who can be that Tyrone Tracy? Oh, Singletary banged up. Who's there? But Giddens can be a 3-down guy. So those are the guys I'm looking for. 3-down guys that can just contribute in different ways.
The Club Fantasy crew just on their haterade tonight. Josh said Rachaad White, he's out.
Josh you don't ever draft good players, Josh. So like that makes sense.
Now, Austin, I wasn't going to pigeonhole you into going negative, but I was going to ask, since you're not as sold on the class, when you start to look at these 3rd and 4th round guys, and let me just list them off real quick. Devin Neal, DJ Giddens, RJ Harvey, Ollie Gordon, Bashal Tootin, Damian Martinez, Jordan James, and is it Brashard Smith? Yeah, Brashard Smith. Are there any of these guys that you think are maybe being overdrafted, Austin, where like you had a chance to watch tape and you weren't as sold on them?
Yeah, what's actually hilarious for me is DJ Giddens was one of those guys.
Oh, no.
I personally didn't love. Now, there are some of these guys that move up higher for me. Like I had RJ Harvey up. He's currently, I have him ranked 6th in my rookie ranking. So I feel fine with him getting the value there. But to me, for DJ Giddens, the thing that concerned me is he felt very boom bust. I felt like if he lands in a spot where he's going to clearly be running more outside zone and getting outside of the tackles, I start to feel more comfortable about him, because to me, he seemed pretty easy to bring down. And it may have just been the games that I watched, but I felt like he didn't get a lot of yards after contact. Outside of that, I think, most of these guys, it's just like, it's one of those things where there's so many of them. It's like, let's just take as many dart throws as you can. Yeah. But I do have some guys that I like more than others. One of which did not get drafted, which I'm very interested to see, Kevin, what you have to say about this, because since he wasn't drafted, I'm like, is this just like a hot take? I low-key really enjoy Trevor Etienne and really liked watching his tape. As I was watching him, I felt like his eyes felt like they were always locked down the field, which I just love from a running back. There are these like small traits that if you have them as a running back, I'm going to just immediately love you, whether or not I should. But I felt like between that and he showed an ability to like be able to bounce and cut and get upfield. I really started to be drawn towards him. There were times where I felt like he was just taking those negative plays, turning them into positives, seemed to be able to break tackles and play through contact. So I'm kind of like, at this point, I'm like, Ryan, you never have draft picks. Like, go pick up Trevor Etienne after this draft and get yourself a decent running back.
Well, you know what, Kevin, let's go with Trevor Etienne, but I'm going to throw out the name that I love, that I was shocked didn't get drafted. And you can tell us, are me and Austin just way both off on these guys? LaQuint Allen from Syracuse, I adore, and he doesn't go in these top 50 picks either. And I understand it's super flex, but when we look at guys like Allen and Etienne, are Austin and I too high, Kevin? Or is again, I know we're going to say this 100 times, landing spot is going to matter, but specifically with Allen, I love his receiving chops, and I feel like any team is going to use him that way.
Well, it's funny because I thought Austin was talking about LaQuint at first. I was like, oh, yeah, because I almost drafted LaQuint at 501. Like, I was like, it was between LaQuint and Raheem. I was kind of like, man, I was like, I'll take Raheem here, but let Allen go in a minute. But he never went. So, like, to me, to start with Allen, I think the big thing for me in like the 5th or 4th round, give me a receiving back. And he's got 64 catches last year, over 500 yards. Like, I'll take LaQuint all day. And that mindset, I think for him, like, LaQuint's big thing is he needs to learn how to be a running back. And that sounds weird. I know that sounds weird saying out loud, but I mean, I know he had a couple thousand yards, but when you watch him play, he's more of a gadget player because he hit those big games. Like, he had those big runs and he had those things. You love to see it. But just from like a film, it's like, dude, be patient, please. Like, slow the hell down. Vision wise, like, hey, just let those blocks come, because you can do that at Syracuse, and not to knock the ACC, but it's the ACC and those defenses there. Like, he's gonna struggle translating that. But the one skill he can translate is his pass catching, right? So like, that is a skill that's gonna be there. So for me, and I think with the thing with Etienne, I like the Trevor Etienne at Florida much more than the Trevor Etienne we saw at Georgia. So like the Trevor Etienne at Florida was the explosive kid. Like when you're watching, they are two different backs. Like when you're watching the tape from Florida, you're like, holy shit, this kid can scoot. Like he does great. Like his biggest thing, his most impressive trait from a running back perspective is his body control. Like his balance, his burst, is able to get in and out of the on offensive line. Like acceleration too was great at Florida, really good there. And he was banged up, and then he had the weird offseason DUI / thing. But Georgia, that's just Georgia. Like that's what they do. So like that.
What else are you doing?
I mean, what else do they do out there? But like, I think that, and from a receiver, he has upside there. Like he's pretty good there. But I think from a weakness standpoint, it's like what happened at Georgia with that production, and it was, and also like he's never had more than 130 attempts in his career. So like, are you getting a 3-down guy? Probably not. So that's really where my drawback there. Under 200 pounds, I don't love that. Like that's a red flag to me in the profile. Obviously, his play weight's probably a little higher than 198 or whatever he measured in at. But I like him. He's fine. Like I'm surprised. I mean, we had a couple out of drafts. So like a Jew he's not even a rookie. Barry and Brown went back to school. Come on, sleeper, get your shit together. Like some of these guys in here, he definitely would have went around those ranges there. But I like both those dart throws. I think I lean LeQuint just because I absolutely love his receiving upside. So like I would lean LeQuint there.
Okay.
Well, I love that you said what you did about LeQuint Allen, and how he has the burst, but his vision is a little off, because the note I wrote about him was literally he has solid downfield speed. He just has to get downfield first. And that felt like his biggest issue was like once he got past the line of scrimmage, I felt like he was going, but getting there was tough.
I swear to God, there was one time where I was watching film. I was like, wait, like I was just like sitting there,
take
like,
a breath,
just chill, guy. Like, I don't know, just wait for that block, because it had been a touchdown, 50-yard touchdown, and he gets 2 yards. And you're like, damn it, Allen, just give him breathe a little bit. Let it breathe.
I love that you guys have disagreed just about on everything on the show, but the scouting report on LeQuint Allen is that obvious that you guys are agreeing on that. I'm going to have you guys break down the 5 players you took, but there is one player I want to ask about that I don't think either one of you drafted. And I am watching his draft stock plummet, and I think a lot of this plays into his 40 time, Kevin, and that is Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. Me and Josh had a little bit of a talk about this past week on one of our shows, where I think he ran like a 4.8 or something like that, and there was an injury that maybe popped up afterward, and Josh says it's not that big a deal because he gets open on tape. I say it is that big a deal. I, at one point, saw this guy as like the 5th wide receiver in this draft class. He fell to the 4th round as probably, I'm not going to count him, but the 8th wide receiver, 9th wide receiver off the board. Is it hands off for Restrepo, or is this something where he can redeem himself?
This one's hard for me because like I like Restrepo's tape. Like in college, like it was pretty good. Like I thought the thing is, so a couple things about the 40. There is absolutely no chance that he was running like 4.8s and his agent was like, yeah, bro, go out there and run that thing. Like,
so that's what I was thinking too.
there could not be like any, like he had to, like when he put out his knee thing or what, a hamstring or whatever he said, like part of me really believes that, because like if my slow ass was running a 4.8 and then like the scouts were coming, I would have definitely pulled up like a hamstring prior. Like I'm like, oh man, listen, I can't run, but I'm gonna do these other things. So like, because when you watch the tape, and I think what Josh is pointing out to is like he has really dynamic short area quickness. Like his agility and short area quickness is legitimate. Like that is very good there. And he's tough. He's like tough kid. Concentration's really well. Catch point does a good job there. I think for me, I wasn't down on him, but I wasn't super high on him because that athletic profile against man is going to struggle. Like I do think that he will, if that's what it looks like he does have the short area quickness, but if he really struggles with that top end speed, defenses are going to know how to guard that. And defenses in college didn't know how to guard that, but in the NFL they are. And I think that like he really lacks positional versatility. Like I think he is what he is. They're going to put him in one spot. They're just going to play him there. And like when you're looking at his percentage of targets beyond 20 yards, that makes me a little nervous because when you go into PFF, you're looking at it like this kid just didn't get open deep. And is that because he's slow? Probably, right? That's probably where it goes. So he could be a very solid prospect from just like maybe a target percentage and just getting targets there. But his ceiling is very capped from like a fantasy perspective. And like, I don't mind where did he go? 4th round, what the hell, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're like, hey, I'll take him there in that range, like, based on who's on the board. Like, I don't mind that. He was going like 112 earlier in the year. Like, he was really going a little higher there.
Too.
But I mean, 4.8 is bad. He's probably at a 4.65. I don't think he's much faster. Like, he's probably around 4.65, maybe low end 4.7, but probably 4.65 in that range. So that worries me from like a ceiling standpoint. I just don't see a ceiling. Like, I just don't see it.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to have these guys break down their drafts. No, we did not get to every player. There are a lot of players, and guess what? We're going to do this draft like 4 more times before the NFL draft even happens, and then 2 more times after.
4? There's like companies out here doing 27 already. I saw like mock draft 27.0.
I'm not saying that you're not going to have that many, and we throw them out there, but for my show, it's once a week, and I'm going to throw in startup drafts and everything. I'm not going to wear us out talking about rookies. Austin, I haven't heard your voice in a while, so I'm going to let you get us started. You have 5 picks. Obviously, talk as much or as little about these guys as you wanted. Obviously, you don't have a team to build around, but you pointed out that a lot of your dynasty teams are RB needy. You've done a lot of study on the RBs, and you walk away with 4 running backs and 1 quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, I did. And one thing I want to just point out about my team. So I did pick Travion Henderson with the 104, but it was in part because I wanted to see how far Caleb Johnson would fall. And if Caleb Johnson would make it back to me in the second round. He almost did. Very, very close. Got taken 1 pick before me. But I have Johnson as my 3rd overall pick on the running back side. Sorry, not overall. My 3rd running back off the board in this class so far. And it's partially just because he's a really patient runner. And I'm a sucker for any guy that if there's a player that I think or I see put a running back that I see put their hand on the back of an offensive lineman, I'm like, that guy. I'm drafting him right away because that just tells me that they have the patience that we were talking about.
The non-LeQuint Allen patience.
Yeah, exactly. But no, as I mentioned, I have actually been really looking forward to Travion Henderson making his way to the NFL. I think it would have happened earlier, but he did run into some injury issues over the past couple of years. And I think that's honestly part of why he is getting overlooked at times in this class. I think when I first pulled up Fantasy Pros, he was down to like 7th in the consensus rankings. I think that's a little bit of an overreaction there. I definitely feel like he has more upside than some of the players below him. Outside of that, I took Jalen Milroe because of the rushing upside, but I want to dig into this quarterback class a little bit more before I kind of commit to taking him in the second round. But, Superflex league and a mock draft, it's worth the upside. The other 3 running backs, again, like I've kind of started to do this thing where I target a position where I really need help at. And so I'm definitely looking at loading up on running backs this year, especially because it is seen as such a high upside class. And I feel like with running backs, I want to be a volume shooter at times with them in these situations, because I feel like if one just lands in the right spot and they get the right situation, then suddenly they're a starting running back. Like Kyron Williams, the year that he entered the draft, he was a 4th round pick. I got him in the 4th round in a couple of leagues. And now people are like looking at me wondering how they're going to get Kyron Williams from me. And it's not happening. Like I'm going to keep him on my roster until his legs get tired out, and we'll rinse and repeat and do it again. But yeah, I think overall, like that's kind of my broad approach, and we'll continue digging into these players more specifically in the coming weeks.
Funny story with Kyron Williams. I also landed him late in a bunch of drafts. I have also sold him for a high pick and then bought him back on that same contending team for another high pick, because that's just how I play if it's about that championship. Kevin, you went from the 1-1. You took Jeanty. We spent enough time on Jeanty. Talk to me a little bit about Tyler Warren, though. Top tight end in this draft. We're not talking a lot about him. So.
Yeah, God, I'm such a fraud though, because like I have Levin as my tight end 1. Because like I have Levin as my tight end 1, but I swear to God, in all these mocks, I don't know why I take Warren too. Like, and it really, because it's going to come down between these guys. They're so close, right? It's the landing spot. The thing I like with Warren, I love he's well rounded, right? He can do a lot of different things. You love the separation skills. I mean, he's Taysom Hill, or he is that. Now we comped him to Greg Olsen though, so like in our comp, we thought Greg Olsen made a little bit more sense. Very physical blocker, inline guy, gonna be out there. Really good contact balance, like yards after catch is great. Like he does an amazing job. He's gonna be an impact player, I believe. Like I think him and Loveland are top 5 tight ends next year. Like I just think when you're looking at it. Like, yeah, it's not that hot of a take. Go look at the tight ends, buddy, because it is nasty. Like after the top 2, you're just like,
oh,
shit.
I misunderstood. I thought you meant top 10 tight ends in Dynasty, like after next year. I misunderstood what you were saying.
Oh, yeah. Okay. They're going to be top 5, 100%.
Okay.
Like I think they can be. Like I think depending on where they're at. Like Loveland to us, we comped into Laporta. So like I think Olsen, Laporta, you have that fantasy aspect there. And I think if you can get Warren in the back end of it, even in a non-tight end premium, I'll take him. Like because from a positional upside, you can probably move him if he ends up being tight end 3 or tight end 4, wherever he's at, which I think both of these guys could easily be right behind Laporta, McBride, and Bowers. They could be 4-5 right there.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did understand what you were saying. You're just saying the rest of the tight ends are so
tight ends are gross.
Yeah.
Listen, dude. Like, hey, I'm just letting you know, because we did this what if who could be number 1, like outside the top 5 of the position the other day. And I was like, shit, I'm not picking Kyle Pitts again. Like, I can't do that. So, like, because you just don't. So, like, we took these guys because we're like, if you look at it from a dynasty perspective, really the only ones just based on value that could probably get back up there is these 2, like these 2 rookies that you're looking there. So I like Warren. I think from just a hybrid kind of role, you love that. What teams just draft them with a purpose, please. Like, give me, like, they drafted Bowers with a purpose. This is what you're doing, and we love it. This is the targets that you're getting. That's where I am with both of those guys, because I think they're both going first round. I'd be shocked if Loveland doesn't end up first round. So to me, both those guys are kind of interchangeable. It just depends on what you want from a fantasy spot. At my next picks,
well, I say you got to talk Noel because it's the only wide receiver between you and Austin that was drafted. So,
well, that's fair. Yeah, I guess we didn't take the wide receivers late, so that just I think that shows you kind of the value of the running back class. Noel, to me, between like him and Higgins, his running mate out there at Iowa State, I really like Noel. Like his relative athletic score, 9.74. You love that. Production standpoint, very good, really good footwork, and he creates space all over the place. So he's a slot guy. So like when you think of like, hey, if I can get a 3rd round slot guy that gets targets, I think Noel's that guy for you. Really dangerous after the catch. So when you're looking at what his yards per attempt, especially deep, his yards per reception is great, almost 15. Really reliable special teams guy too. So like, hey, gonna get on the field. Hey, you're gonna earn those reps. That's what you like there. I think the biggest thing with him is like it's going to come from that physical corners and everything there. But I love that he came in at 194. That's stocky. Like that's not small. So you love that. We actually comped him to Golden Tate just from a play style. So, and Golden Tate's Golden Tate. He was fine. Like he wasn't amazing, but he wasn't great. And I think that could be Noel, like sitting there as that target guy. Earned a ton of targets the last 3 years, averaged like 72. So we like that in college, especially with Higgins being there. Not the greatest quarterback play. I mean, I guess Brock was there, but he was ass in college. Okay. Brock Purdy was not great in college. And then you have Rocco Beck there now. So Noel to me is just a very solid, like 3rd round target getter. And if he goes day 2, that's the type of guy you're looking for. Just a slot guy that can play there.
There you go. Guys, I'm going to wrap the show up with that because I do not like to keep this thing going on longer than an hour, and I don't want to keep you guys over an hour. And so that's the long and short of it. We're going to wrap this thing up. Kevin, thank you so much. That was awesome. First show of the season. We appreciate you. Again, remind everybody where they can find your work, what you're working on right now.
Yeah, you can find our Substack over at the Devy Royale. Basically, if you sign up there, you get all the articles that we write, and we're writing way too many, but we're writing like 5 or 6 a week, me and Christian. And then, but if you sign our Patreon, we're running a special right now, actually, 30% off your first year, so annual membership, and you get Dynasty rankings, Devy rankings. We actually created a ranking sheet last year where it's combined everything. So you separate. So you get Devy, you get Dynasty, or you can combine it. So, and we have a trade calculator. So we actually have a Devy trade calculator that basically will tell you, okay, what is Jeremiah Smith, who's a wide receiver at Ohio State? How's he worth Marvin Harrison Jr.? So, and we have combined rankings. So we have over 1,000 players ranked combined. So you can go in there, you can see kind of how your assets are ranked. We have consensus rankings, or if you think I'm ass, we have Christian and Jay and some of these other guys out there for you. And it's a lot of fun. We just dropped also like the big guides that we're doing. So we're doing 6 giant guides projects throughout the year that you get with the Patreon and the Substack. So there's some Substack only content there, but I would just say sign up for the Patreon because then you get everything and you get the Substack for free. So that's also that.
Do it, people. Austin, any parting words for our friends?
I mean, other than join us on Discord, because that's where I'm spending most of my
Austin's kind of
taken
taken over as the club fantasy voice on the Discord. So
yeah, I want to hang out with folks and get to interact with people that way. That's kind of more the fun part of the content game for me. You know, I like the writing, I like the podcasting, but I like getting to interact with people. So come join us on that Discord.
There you go. This show is going to be back every week from this point forward. I am doing a startup draft next week. We're going to have Club Fantasy Zone Joel Worth here with us. So if you guys are looking for startup, I think I'm keeping it Superflex just to kind of play off of this draft. Look out for that next Friday at 9 p.m. I'll start sending out invites for the draft next Friday morning. So make sure you get into that Discord like Austin mentioned, so that way you can get that invite and draft with us. Thank you so much to Kevin. For Austin, I'm Ryan. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and practice makes perfect. We will see you at the next mock draft.